Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Lauren, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. It has been Knicks fever here in New York City over the past few weeks. Last episode, I talked all about the Knicks win, what the team and the players really taught me about resilience and standing back up when you are kicked down. This week, I want to extend that conversation, but focus on a different aspect of the Knicks win. And that aspect is the community and the vibes and what has been happening here in New York City. Saturday night when the Knicks won was amazing. I'm sure you might have seen some videos online about the moment. Things got chaotic in some parts of the city, but for the most part, it was a really exciting celebration. I was watching the game at home with a few of my close friends, and as it became apparent that the Knicks were going to win, we were putting our shoes on, not wanting to jinx it because we did want to make sure they did in fact win the game, but we were so ready to go hit the streets to celebrate with everybody as soon as they won. When they won the game, we opened the windows and heard everybody cheering in apartments all around us, and were met with even more excitement as we went outside. It was a top 10 New York moment. It was just this really unified experience, and I don't know a single person around me who wasn't also feeling it. I've been riding the high all of this week, not just because the Knicks won, although let's be honest, a win in 53 years is worth celebrating, but also really reflecting on the way that the city really just came together and opened up. I heard someone saying, wow, this just feels like a really big block party. And that's exactly what it felt like. Strangers were making eye contact and smiling at each other. On our walk over to our friend's house, we had some people ask if they wanted to start a Let's Go Knicks cheer with us. Everyone was just talking to each other. People were hugging each other. People were crying and laughing. One moment that I really remember is as all the cars went by, people were just high-fiving them. And I kept thinking, when was the last time New York felt like this? Because there's a version of this city, and I think a lot of us have felt it, especially if you've lived here for a while, where you can go a whole day and have no real authentic exchange with another human being. When you go on the subways, people often have their headphones in, their eyes down, they're moving fast and minding their own business. And to be fair, New York's a really overstimulating place to live. And so I think some of that behavior is protecting our peace. A lot of people in other places commute in cars. New Yorkers were commuting all together. You're just constantly around people. And I understand why we revert to these behaviors. I do it too. The city is a lot, and sometimes you just need to get where you're going. But I think somewhere along the way, we stopped expecting connections from strangers. Our whole world became online, and that in-person interaction was lost. And I think we even saw with the resurgence of nostalgia for 2016 a few months ago, there's this desire to get back to a place of connection. The Knicks win weekend reminded me that this type of connection is still possible. It was always right there. The Knicks win was a moment where we were all doing the same thing at the same time for the same reason. We were all pointed in a collective direction, and that feeling is so rare. When you have it, it almost feels fake. It doesn't even feel real. It's almost like a good old days feeling and a nostalgia feeling, but I think it's actually more than that. I think when people say, oh, remember the good old days, they're not really talking about a specific time. They're actually talking about a permission structure that existed back then. And this permission structure has somehow gotten lost in our present day. When I think about it, the reason that that win evening felt so different wasn't because people were suddenly different. People were the same. It wasn't because New Yorkers became friendlier or warmer or more open all of a sudden. It's because the Knicks win gave everyone permission permission to make eye contact, permission to start a conversation with a stranger on the street, permission to feel something big in public and share it and let it show. Permission was the thing. And I want you to sit with that thought for a second, because I think it says something a little bit uncomfortable about how we currently move through the world. We have been waiting for a reason to connect. We have been waiting for external permission to act like humans who need other humans. I'm not saying this as a judgment. I'm absolutely including myself in it because I think we have all fallen victim to a very disconnected world. When the permission came, when the Knicks made it socially acceptable to interact with strangers, we didn't hesitate. We were so ready. And I think we've been ready for a really long time. So here's the fresh perspective I want to offer you today. The good old days aren't a time you need to get back to. Things weren't necessarily better just because they existed in a past. I believe that there's a way of existing and living today that you don't need a championship win to access. So I want to get into the part of this conversation that I think makes this actionable, because I don't want this to be an episode where you're hearing me talk about an amazing night in New York City and you're having major FOMO. I want this to be an episode where you can walk away with things that I genuinely believe can help keep this energy alive, not just this week, not just when there's something to celebrate, but I want to propose a different way of actually moving through the world. And this is a multi-pronged approach. So the first way to keep this energy alive is to be the person who starts it. Someone started those chants on Saturday night. I don't know who it was. I never will. There were a lot of people. But that person made a choice in a split second to do something that could have easily felt embarrassing or out of place or too much. And because they did it, a whole group of strangers ended up in the street together, feeling something that they'll never forget. Think about how often connection happens because one person decided to go first. One person asked a question, cracked a joke, made eye contact, or gave a compliment. The Knicks win worked because someone started it, and you don't need 53 years of pent-up frustration and a Jalen Brunson 45-point performance to be that person in your own life. You just have to decide to be the first. I know that feels like a super small thing, but I genuinely think that most of us are sitting around waiting for someone else to go first, to start. I'll do this too. I'll be in an elevator and see someone with a really cute shirt on and think about saying something and giving them a compliment. But then the doors open, the moment's gone, and we both go back to our life. No connection shared. That's a super tiny example, but imagine if you went first every time you had the instinct or feeling or desire to. How different could your day look? How different could you make someone else's day look? The second approach is to find your shared team. I talk a lot about community on the podcast, and community forms around shared investment. That's what the Knicks taught me this week. It doesn't matter what you did, where you lived, what you look like. If you were a Knicks fan, you had something in common with every single person on the street. Everybody was on the same team. And how often does that not happen these days? I think a lot of us are craving that, but actually don't know how to find it. We all as humans crave being part of something, rooting for something together, having a thing that's ours with a group of people. And the vehicle matters way less than we think. It doesn't have to be sports. It could be a running club. It could be a neighborhood project, a class you've taken every week. It could even be a podcast community like the one I am trying to form. What I'm saying is find your team. Find the people you're rooting for the same thing with. Because when you have that, you have a built-in permission structure. My third tip is to let yourself feel things in public. This is one that I keep coming back to, and I think one of the things that made this past weekend so electric. Nobody was performing. Nobody was trying to be cool. Nobody was trying to be too cool not to cry. No one was keeping the volume down on their emotions and their excitement. People were just feeling it and sharing it and letting it show. I think we walk around with so much of that emotion turned down. There's this very specific New York thing where you don't want to seem like you care too much, like you're too excited, like you need things. And I get it. But I think that habit of dimming your own joy so other people can feel comfortable costs you something. It costs you the full experience of feeling and living your life. I'm not saying you need to perform your feelings for strangers all the time, but this week showed me how much I had been holding back on my emotions. And I want to try holding back less. I want to let myself be moved by things and let that show. And my guess is if you think about the moments in your life where you felt the most alive, the most real, you weren't holding back on those emotions either. And I want to caveat that this can be shared joy, but it can also be vulnerability and shared disappointment. I think in any scenario where we can truly show our emotions becomes a moment for human connection. And my fourth way of bringing this type of energy into your life every day is to invest in the small stuff. Big moments like this are rare. They only happen once every 53 years. Hopefully not going forward. But I don't think the answer is to live for the peaks and to settle for disconnection in between those moments. I think the answer is to build connection into the small, regular moments, the ones that happen every single day. I'm talking about actually looking up at the person who's making your coffee in the morning, saying good morning to your neighbor as you're leaving the house, asking the person next to you on the subway what they're reading. I'm talking about these tiny moments of interactions that are a few seconds. Done consistently, these moments start to build something around you and something within you. They build a social fabric that makes New York feel alive. By doing this, you're choosing to pay attention and choosing to show up as a person instead of just a body moving through space. I remember when I studied abroad, the first piece of advice that I was ever given was become a regular somewhere. Find a space where somebody knows your name, where you can connect with the people that work there, with the people that visit there, and become part of your community, of a social fabric. I will close with this. This week gave me hope. It gave me hope in what we as humans are capable of and the community we're capable of creating and sharing with one another. It showed me that the walls that we put up are real, but they don't have to be permanent. One shared moment and they can come down completely. You already know what it feels like to have and share genuine connection with people. And now you have a great example of how it's possible. You felt it this week if you were in New York City, and you probably felt it as well witnessing what was going on in New York City. The question is just whether you're going to let that become something that you choose every day or something that you remember fondly until the next time this great city gives you permission to feel. You don't have to wait for the next championship game, and you don't have to be in New York City to make this human connection part of your everyday life. We are all capable of creating connection and sustaining community with those around us. It's just a choice if we want to embark on that journey. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. I'm so glad you were here for this one. If it resonated, please share it with someone. Honestly, share it with a New Yorker who is out on their streets this week, or share it with somebody who is inspired by what happened in New York this past week. And if you haven't already, I would love if you can rate and review the show on whatever platform you are listening on. It genuinely means so much to me and helps people find out about my little corner of the internet. Thanks, have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon.